Starts right now. Hi, Ari.
Hi, Nicole. Nice to see you. We're interested here, excited to have Mary Trump. Nice to see you, too, to have Mary Trump on. And I always wonder in our jobs, how much do you think it matters what people like the president really think and feel versus just the rest of their actions? Because she has insights, on the former.
Well, it's so interesting. I mean, I think that you know how much Donald Trump thinks his family matters to his political fate because they spoke all over his convention, multiple family members every night. So we know he thinks that voters care about what his family thinks of him. I think it makes Mary even more important. Yeah,
it's a great point you say, because usually it's in other countries where you see the family take a bigger role in government. We've seen that certainly over the last couple of years here. I hope you have a well-earned and nice weekend.
You too, and that's a nice way to say it. That's your charm, Ari. Have a great show. I'm going to go upstairs and watch.
There we go. Thanks, Nicole. Good to see you, and welcome to The Beat. I am Ari Melber. I want to thank you for joining us on The Beat as we track these stories now. Dr. Fauci breaking publicly with a key Trump claim about the pandemic. We have that. A top DOJ official, brand new, out amidst reports that link Giuliani to a Russian agent, an important story we have later this hour, and all 4 officers charged in the George Floyd case in court today. Prosecutors say they should be tried as one conspiracy. Now, we begin right now with fear and loathing on the campaign trail, to quote Hunter S. Thompson. But right now, it's also fear and lying. President Trump campaigns amidst blowback for lying about COVID, both in the past but on through this week. You're looking at this MAGA rally in Michigan, where Donald Trump was pushing his own supporters to trust that things are getting safer in the pandemic. Now, what drives him to do that kind of thing? Well, as mentioned, we'll be joined by Donald Trump's niece, Mary Trump, in just a few moments. This is at a time, of course, when Trump's exposed strategy of COVID deceit is drawing a blunt rebuke from his own COVID task force member, Dr. Fauci.
You said it was time to hunker down because the fall and the winter is, quote, not going to be easy. The president says we've rounded the final turn. How do you square those two messages?
Well, I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with that, because if you look at the thing that you just mentioned, the statistics, Andrea, they're disturbing. We're plateauing at around 40,000 cases a day, and the deaths are around 1,000.
That caseload and death rate, an obvious reminder of why these scandals are not just about history. They're not just about what Trump knew only in February. But where does the U.S. go from here in a pandemic that could last years? Dr. Fauci also went further than usual, recounting how Trump undercut those medical safety warnings previously, just as Trump continues to do today.
Certainly there were disagreements. As you know, there were times when I was out there telling the American public how difficult this is, how we're having a really serious problem. And the president was saying it's something that's going to disappear, which obviously is not the case. When you downplay something that is really a threat, that's not a good thing.
Now, Fauci's famously quite careful and measured about how he navigates these disagreements with his boss. But right here, you see him leaning on the sad fact that, of course, it was Dr. Fauci, not Donald Trump, who proved to be right in his public statements. Trump wrong. None of this disappeared. You know that. False information, though, goes further. It can actually be actively dangerous to your health. So Trump continues to spin this situation. Keep in mind the dangers are the backdrop. For example, Donald Trump misleading how the virus here compares to other countries. When you get out to treatment, well, Donald Trump faces an opponent offering a different approach to health care, and Trump's just lying about the Biden plan, a sign he doesn't think the truth works for him politically on that issue of health care, and then stumping in the Midwest with lies about jobs. And we have a beat fact check about that big campaign issue later in the program. But you take it all together here, and the president's ending the first week of the official general election. That was this week. I know there's a lot going on. Facing a major scandal over his failure to honestly lead in a crisis. And the pandemic's not the only crisis unfolding right now. There are these historically large wildfires that continue to rage out west. 15 people have already died, a whopping 4 million acres already devastated across California as well as Oregon, where you can see right here why the mayor there declared a state of emergency. The governor also publicly pleading for the Trump administration to support its governmental emergency response. Officials on the ground say Donald Trump failing them through inaction, some critics compare his sort of public denial of even admitting what's going on with the wildfires, that posture, to, of course, his deceitful approach to COVID. New reports today are that things are even worse than all of that, because right-wing conspiracy theories supported publicly by Donald Trump are leading to dangerous activity. Again, we're living in a time where misinformation can be dangerous to your health, and officials are warning. They're getting flooded with false phone calls fanned by QAnon, which incorrectly try to blame the fires on Trump's perceived opponents. Translation: what happens on Facebook doesn't always stay on Facebook. This is a real-world emergency. Political propaganda is making it harder for these firefighters to get the real information and warnings they need as they go out and do their work and risk their lives. That's why sheriff's departments are pleading with people with messages like this: just stop spreading rumors, stop calling 911 with political pranks. They say it has now gotten to the point where it is hampering their bandwidth to respond to the fires and real emergencies. It's 2020, so sometimes we have to state the obvious around here. Do not call 911 with QAnon, Trumpy, fake news propaganda. You do have the right to think and say whatever you want, including typing it up on the internet. You do not have the right to deceitfully thwart firefighting in the middle of this very real crisis. And for those calling from the West Coast, where some of these calls have been traced, if you need to, think about it like this. Misinformation is expensive, and the house you save could be your own. As mentioned, we're thrilled to have Mary Trump live in the hour, but I want to begin with some of our analysts: Jason Johnson, professor of politics at Morgan State University, and Katty Kay, Washington anchor for BBC News. Good evening to both of you.
Good evening, Ari.
Jason, there's much talk about misinformation, and people don't like lying even when it's just verbal, if you want to be that specific.
Right.
But given these twin crises, your view of the costs of this kind of misinformation?
Ari, it's massive. I'm in California right now, and the difficulty that local officials are having in managing people when it comes to these wildfires is immense. And it's partially because of QAnon. It's partially because the president basically sort of thumbs his nose at these sorts of issues. The rate of destruction that is happening out here, basically the size of Central Park is being burned every other day in Northern California and Oregon. Central Park, every other day, is being burned, devastated. There is a haze over the sky on a regular basis. At the bottom of a pool, you can see ash settling after every single night. So the idea that people are wasting public resources with crazy conspiracy theories because they think that the fires were created by, 5G or invading Muslims or George Soros doesn't help the fact that there are hundreds of thousands of people who are either going to be out of their homes or not able to stay safely in their homes during a time where we have a pandemic, where rescuing people and putting them into shelters is all the more difficult. So, yeah, this is propaganda that's costing lives. When Trump lies, people are dying.
Well, and Katty, the White House has often tried to reposition the COVID conversation in the election as, well, this hit everywhere. This is a global thing. It seems that this week there is a rightful focus and scrutiny on the president's leadership, on his honesty, on his approach, which is relevant as you go into election about who you want to continue to deal with this crisis, or do you want to change the commander-in-chief?
Yeah, the virus has hit everywhere. But my 14-year-old daughter is on online schooling here in Washington. Her friend in France is in class. Her friend in London is in class. Her friend in China is in class. Her friend in Senegal is in class. And her friend in Germany is in class. They're all going to school. And the reason they're going to school is because those countries have handled this better. So that's a direct comparison. And in a globalized world, our children here in the United States, make no mistake about it, they're losing out. Because those other kids are in class, going to school and advancing, while our kids are not advancing. So we're kicking this down to the next generation as well. But we elect leaders to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. It is totally possible that you can give people the facts, that you can trust the American people with the facts of something as it is, and also be inspirational and motivational and lift them up with a plan and show leadership. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, and I think that's what the president is mistaking when he says he didn't want people to panic, and so he downplayed the virus.
Well, and Katty, you talk about how that stacks up in a global context, which I think is very interesting to remember, and then how people are receiving these messages. Reporter Jim Acosta spoke to some people going to the Trump rally. Take a look.
Sir, why are you not wearing your mask?
Because there's no COVID. It's a fake pandemic created to destroy the United States of America.
But the president said to Bob Woodward that there is a virus, the coronavirus, and that it is deadly.
That's his opinion.
Caddy.
Where do you start? I mean, you start by asking all of our leaders to come out with consistent, clear, accurate, honest messaging. I mean, I really felt for Anthony Fauci in that interview, because I've interviewed Fauci, and he is so careful not to wade into political waters where there's going to be a difference between him and the president, because he says that will be the only story, and he is trying to get out the public health story. He doesn't want to make it a political story about a disagreement. He clearly feels now he has to set a marker. He has to wade into the politics of this and say, no, when the president says we are turning a corner, we're not actually turning a corner. We're in this for the long haul, because when the president says we're turning a corner, when he says we're about to get over this, or that it's magically going to disappear, what happens? That guy doesn't wear a mask when he attends a rally because he thinks it's not there. That's the risk.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, look, Trump can say, you know, he can see the light at the end of the tunnel all he wants. It's a train, right? It's a train coming at us. We are about to head into fall, which is flu season. This is a time where not only do you have kids going back to school, but you have people who have to shelter in place more because it's cold, you can't eat outside, and that makes this much more difficult. And I think, Ari, the real danger here is that as we recognize that the president is grotesquely incompetent, right? He's driven by sort of racial malice and paying off his friends and everything else like that. At the base of all of this, we cannot forget two key things. One, that the president is still trying to steal the election with the post office, that you still have right-wing Supreme Courts in Wisconsin right now that are trying to block people from getting absentee ballots, that you have the president of the Republican Party suing in Iowa to prevent people from getting their absentee ballots, that he is still trying to steal the election at the same time that you have literally millions of Americans now who are out of work, who will be out of their homes, who are being evicted, which will make it more difficult for them to actually vote. So as much as the president is a horrible human being and trying to bankrupt this country and pay off his friends and stay in office, he is also doing things. His incompetence has disrupted the ability of regular people to remove him from office in a democratic way. We can't ever lose sight of that, because if we can't get rid of him, everything that's happening now will be 10 times worse by next year.
All important warnings and thoughts. Jason Johnson, I thank you. And Caddy, we're going to have you back in the show. To many MSNBC viewers, Caddy K is an icon. You're going to be joined by another one, Andre Leon Talley, by the time we make it to fallback. So we'll see you then.